Very exciting, this 17-hour non-stop flight from Perth to London. You are really pushing into this long-haul aspect. Are you expecting this is going to bring in a new stream of passengers and therefore revenue?
We will. It's the most convenient way of getting from Australia to the UK. So people travelling from Perth to London will save over 3 hours. And if you're travelling from Sydney and Melbourne, it's over an hour. And we know that people want direct services. And this will be on the new state-of-the-art 787. We've put less seats on the aircraft than most of our competitors, so there's a lot more comfort. We have only 236 seats, and a lot of our competitors have over 300 seats in the same aircraft. And it's only a few weeks away, and the initial forward bookings are extremely strong, ahead of where we expected to be. So I'm very confident that the travelling public really do like these new direct services.
And what impact do you think this is going to have to your domestic business? Because if you do have these non-stop flights, they don't have to stop somewhere else. Is that going to bring more traffic into Australia across the Jetstar and Qantas domestic routes?
Yes, we believe so. I mean, the big thing about this for WA, Western Australia, the economy has been a bit depressed for a while with the resource decline, and there's real excitement in WA about the tourism opportunity this brings into that state. People coming, stopping in Perth, visiting different tourist locations there, and then coming to the East Coast and visiting the Opera House or the great cafes and restaurants in Melbourne or the Great Barrier Reef, and we think we'll get more stopovers in the domestic market as a consequence.
You've also flagged non-stop Sydney to LA and to New York. You're in talks with Airbus and Boeing about that. What sort of plane, I should say, do you have in mind for this, and how are those talks progressing?
Well, both Airbus and Boeing have an aircraft in production, or going to be in production, that we think can nearly do it, not quite there. And the challenge with Project Sunrise is to get both manufacturers to give an aircraft that can do with full passenger and freight payloads. They're getting closer, and there's a lot of work done with our engineers, our pilots and their engineers to make it happen. This is a game-changing aircraft. You know, we've flown on the Kangaroo route now for over 80 years. It used to be called the Kangaroo route because of all the stops on the way. At one stage, there were 13 stops. Now, with these direct services, you can do a non-stop. And the convenience that introduces for the travelling public is immense. And we think it's a game-changing aircraft for the Qantas Group.
What sort of breakdown will it be when it comes to economy, premium economy business? Because it is a long flight. You would expect to want to be in comfort on these flights.
You do, and new aircraft technology has given you that. The 787 is an example. Yes, better humidity on the aircraft, better altitude management, so people feel more refreshed. And as we said, we're putting less seats on with bigger seat pitch in economy, better seats in premium economy and in business. And that will be the case when it comes to these new aircraft that can do Sydney-London direct. We've also been working very closely with the University of Sydney to improve the entire experience. You know, what food do you offer? What lighting on the aircraft do you offer? How do you encourage people to actually get into the time zone earlier? And it's one of the world's, I think, first real study into human health on long flights, and we think that'll make a big difference to the travel experience.
Still, since you first announced that Perth to London route, we have seen jet fuel pretty much double since 2016. At what point do these long-haul flights become commercially unviable?
Well, believe it or not, these new aircraft are super efficient fuel-wise. So, for example, the 787, as fuel prices goes up, is actually more competitive against the 74 and the A380. Even in current fuel prices, we could fly two 787s tail to tail, and it's actually cheaper than an A380. So as fuel increases, the four-engine aircraft become less efficient, and these dual aircraft become more efficient. So we think it's a bit of a hedge to future movement in fuel prices as well.
I was going to ask how you are actually hedging in this environment.
So we've always taken the same approach. We don't take a view on fuel, but we do put hedging in to give us protection in the short term. And the way that hedging works, it's typically puts a cap on our fuel expenditure and allows us to participate if fuel was to fall. And that's actually helped us be quite competitive and actually pick the right way of hedging fuel for the last few years. And that's what we intend to do. I have to say we are coping quite well with fuel at the moment. In October, we gave an update to the market about our first half, which is July to December, and so we said that Qantas would make between 900 and 950 million at the underlying level. At the top of that range, that will be a record result for the Qantas Group, despite fuel prices rising. So we're digesting it quite well at the moment.
Yeah, well, your results obviously coming up. You did see Qantas' share price have an absolute outperformance of the year last year, up by 51%. When you look at dividends, though, we saw 7 cents last year compared to 23 cents October 2015. When can we start to see return to shareholders?
So the big thing about dividend for Australian shareholders is a franked dividend, which, and because Qantas is still digesting the tax losses that we incurred in 2013, we haven't been paying current tax, cash tax, and that changes, we think, in the next year or two. But what we have been doing is extensively doing a buyback to return the money to shareholders, which is the most efficient way of doing that. And total to date, over the last 4 years, we've given $2.6 billion through dividends, capital returns, and particularly buyback. We're now up to over 20% of our stock being bought back in the last 2 years at a very good price. It was under $4, so that was actually really good value to the shareholders considering the current price.
Let's talk about some of the Dreamliners as well, because you have some options on those, I think around 45. Are you going to actually exercise those options?
So the options come up one by one over the next few years, and that gives us huge flexibility. So we are taking delivery of 8 aircraft this year to replace the older 747s. We'll still have 6 young 747s left, and at some stage we will be replacing them with 787s, and we haven't made a call about when that will be. And for us, it's balancing up all of the really good business cases we have within the group, because Jetstar also have a very good business case for us to take more of the A320neos to actually retire some of the 320s, and that is also an option for us in expansion going forward. So we're working through what are the best business cases, what's the best allocation of capital, and what gives the group the better return.
When you look at some of your partnerships, for example, with Emirates, you've just re-signed a 5-year alliance with Emirates, but the President, Tim Clark, did have a bit of a question mark over your future relationship if you continue down this non-stop long-haul route. He said it could make the relationship a bit challenging. Did you find that comment disappointing?
No, I mean, myself and Tim have had really good conversations about this, and the relationship is stronger than it's ever been. And in fact, I think what Tim was saying is that the partnership has worked really well, and we don't see that changing. So when even Qantas has the range to fly from Sydney, Melbourne to London, we may have 1 or 2 more destinations like Paris and Frankfurt, but Emirates have another 37 destinations in continental Europe. We're not going to fly to them. So the partnership through Dubai to those destinations really works. The year before the partnership with Emirates, we had 400,000 people on the Qantas code travelling to Europe. This year we'll have over 1.2 million. It's been an unbelievable success. That's good for Emirates, that's good for us, and we don't think that changes. And I think what Tim is saying is, you know, we'll change the dynamic of the partnership, and of course it will for those few markets, but the core of the partnership still stands.
A lot of Australian expats in Singapore, myself obviously included, you're going to start to reroute that flight to London via Singapore. That's going to also have these bigger jets where you've got premium economy as well. Tell us exactly how you're expecting that to increase revenue and demand.
Well, it's a big increase for us because we see huge growth in the Asian market, and Singapore, we've been flying to Singapore now for over 83 years. It's our first international destination, our longest international destination, and our most important international destination outside of Australia, and we will be continuing to grow it. So from the 25th of March, A380s come back onto Sydney, Singapore, London, which is first class and premium economy being reintroduced. And Melbourne, Singapore becomes an A380 market as well. So it gives more capacity, better seats, more choices of product, and we think it's big growth in a very big growing market and a very important market for us.